here we are with the panel, and we're going to go ahead and start working on the resin-based inlay here in the top. All I did was figure out the design I want, and then I went to a paper cutter and I cut down a couple different sizes and shapes of the ribbon to see what I kind of like best and what looked best on the panel. And then I laid it down and then traced around it with a pencil, and that gave me the desired shape. All right. So now I'm going to take a straight edge and a utility knife, and I'm just going to score each one of these lines, not this line and not this line over here, but each one of the lines for the ribbon. And then that's going to give me a little kerf to put my chisel in and start chiseling out the waste. I'm going to use a chisel and a small router plane to clean it up. Now that I've gone around the entire perimeter with the chisel and setting my lines, I'm now going to go in and just give myself a little bit of a relief cut here to define that shoulder line. And I'm going to do that around the entire perimeter before I start taking out the middle. Alright, now that I went ahead and defined all the lines, kind of gave myself some relief cuts, now I'm going to take my chisel and I'm just going to start working my way down to my depth. And I'm going to do my depth, maybe a 1/4 inch, 3/8, something like that. Maybe not quite that deep. But I'm just going to get it started with a chisel, and then I'm going to bring it back with a miniature hand plane to completely level out the bottom. That's because your resin is generally translucent. Even though I'm going to dye mine, you're still going to be able to see through it somewhat, and I don't want you to be able to see an uneven bottom once it's all cure. I'm just using the router plane here to go ahead and finish smoothing the bottom out. Get all these corners nice and crisp. And you'll notice that I went just a tad too deep on the router plane, and I'm actually going to expose the dominoes from the Festool. But it's alright, that's a little patchwork. We'll fix that right up. And the resin will seep down in there as well and kind of reinforce that domino a little bit anyway. And I'm gonna have to go back with a small chisel and get these inside corners right here. Now we're ready for the resin, and we're gonna go ahead and mix it up, and then we'll start pouring it. I went ahead and painted the bottom yellow, and I did that because I want the dye and the epoxy to be very vibrant yellow. I didn't really want to see a lot of wood grain going through there, and I had a lot of these mineral lines going through, and I was afraid that that was going to kind of darken the epoxy and not make it very bright and vibrant. Here I just got a little cut off of a water bottle, and I got my epoxy resin, and I'm going to use art resin, and that's because it comes out super clear, it's non-yellowing, it's easy to mix, it's a 1:1 ratio. Got me just a scrap for a stir stick, and then I got some Trans Tint lemon yellow dye here. This was provided by Trans Tint specifically to use on this project to kind of show how you can dye epoxy resin for inlays or to fix knots and cracks and voids. So we're going to start, and we take our part A, which is our resin. And we pour about a 50-50 mix of it. And then we'll take our hardener. If I get a little more hardener, that's okay. It's just going to set up a little faster. Now I'm just going to take this Trans Tint dye here, and then I'm going to drop a few drops into it. All right, I've dropped in about 10 drops, and I'm being very careful not to get the rest of the dye all over the workbench. And then I'm just going to mix it real well. So when I fill the epoxy, I am just going to start from one corner and let it kind of flow through. That way I don't get as many air bubbles. Now I'm going to take a lighter. If you have a blowtorch or a heat gun, you can use that. We're just going to run it over the surface. And this is going to bring any of those air bubbles hopefully to the top and pop them. And then we're going to let it cure overnight for about 18 hours before we come back and kind of sand it smooth. Alright, now we're out here and the epoxy is all cured and it's nice and hard. Now we're going to go ahead and sand it with some 60 grit flush, and we're going to get all this cleaned up around the sides.